Belgien. Frankreich gegen Russland. 20 Jahre.
Can you shut that big old water bottle over here? Never get a boy to do a man's job.
Les filles, posez sur la ligne. Vas-y, on pose après là, et on...
We'll do our best. Thank you very much. Thanks for all your help. Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome back to live action from the European Youth Ultimate Championship here in beautiful sunny Wroclaw in Poland. We are out for a cracker here between the Russians and the French girls of the under-20 division, and it's going to be a great matchup we're having in this summer heat right here. I'm Christina Overmeyer, joined by my perfect colleague Benji Rees.
Stop! You're don't let it go to my head. Honestly, thanks, Christina. It's a delight to be out here. Now the sun's come out. There's still some cloud cover a little bit, but getting quite warm out here, especially when you're on this AstroTurf surface. It does absorb and then radiate back the heat, so it's important to stay hydrated here. The format of this women's division here at EYUC, certainly for the under-20s anyway, there's 2 pools of 6 teams each. The top 3 go straight into the bracket. The bottom team in each pool is knocked out of contention. The 4th and 5th seeds in each pool then play a little pre-quarter crossover to go in. Both of these sides in Pool B. The French currently undefeated. They had a big 15-1 win over Israel to begin the tournament. They've seen off Italy 11-8, 14-12 over Sweden. Russia lost to Sweden 13-11, but they've won their other games, being Israel 15-6 and Poland 15-3.
As we are getting started with the French on offense there, the Russians come out with an arrowhead zone look as we see the steady handlers of this undefeated French team just content to swing it all over. Now at the sideline with Vaunois, and we can see them there just easily swinging it around, and not a lot of pressure there from this Russian team. As we can see, Dro centering it, a great layout to save possession. And they have great lateral movement going side to side on this pitch. Dro here at the near sideline, putting it over to Flanquette. Dro and Flanquette going every other now, right in front of their end zone. Just a quick score to pop it in, and for the first goal by number 21 of Bono. It's a great composure there from the French in their first possession there, looking fired up there, easily running through the Russian zone. Great stuff to start the game.
Just absolutely flawless possession there from the French. You see a lot of teams, they tend to go zone on the first point. It's a little bit better at preventing those set plays initially. And especially, you often come into game with a lot of energy. So playing a zone just to try and slow you down, deflate that balloon a little bit, can often pay dividends. But the French, so calm, so collected. They never really seem to make a pass, never larger than 5-10 yards, but they never really had to. Doing the right thing, just constantly moving the disc quickly between those open options, and eventually Marine Rolla finds Eva Bonneau for the first goal of the game. Fantastic possession here for France, taking a well-deserved 1-0 lead.
Exactly, and this is how to play against such an arrowhead defense the Russians are putting up here. And great stuff by this veteran, but still very young French O-line, as we will see what the Russians can pull out on their first offensive possession. Pull fielded by Leontieva on to the sideline. Masukova, who's the anchor of this team, as we can see her putting up a big shot. It's going to be deflected by the French player. Eva Bonneau, great position, reads the play and gets up for the first defense of this game. And the French are firing. Their D-line will have their first chance to get in a break, but they will have to work it up the whole field.
You can see why they were keen to take that deep shot. Ksenia Kazakova had a big deep cut developing nice and early. There's a bit of a size mismatch there as well, so if you can get it deep into space, maybe it hangs a little bit, but you back your receiver to bring it down. But Bonneau had great position, got in there in front, and now French D-line offense is going to go to work, and it's going to go to work quickly as well.
great movement already, great flow over to the steady hands of Bono. She doesn't find anyone, gets a great break shot off to Bono. There seems to be some siblings on this team, as great movement between the two of them. The two Bono sisters doing so much for this D-line offense. A great movement and dish off in the middle now. Oh, and, just overshot her receiver there, trying to get a hand on it. No fear to get horizontal, and Russia can get it back on their first offensive possession.
Even with that overshoot, there was still a chance for her to bring it in, but she just slipped as she tried to set herself to get ready to bid. And now Russia advancing to the halfway line on their second possession of this point.
Kazukova putting it back into the great hands of Kazukova, who's putting an amazing grab over and hacks another one deep, the same, but it's just a bit of a miscommunication as both players go to ground. Great composure there by the French to read that play and get a defense on there.
It's the same combination that got the defense on that first deep shot. Vasyukova pointing, demonstrating pretty clearly where she wanted the cut to develop, and that allowed the French player to just have that little bit of extra awareness. Eva Borno got her body in position nice and early. You can see she goes up quite strong as well, gets very close, but just has that body position that makes it very difficult for Kazakova to get behind her and still somehow claw the disc away from her path. So a second break opportunity here for France.
As they will put the disc back into play and are going to isolate Bono sister, who just can't get a grab on it, but a great save by the number 10 shot of Na. Over to Bono. And great movement by the French, just isolating their players and can't keep her hands to the disc. We're seeing a lot of shaky drops here as Russia gets another opportunity. Let's see what they can do now as Vasyukova fields the disc and gets it back immediately, but just shot a little undercooked by Tatarinova, and the French on their third chance for a break.
Certainly messy first offensive point here for the Russians, but you've got to credit the way that they've put pressure on a lot of these French throws. So they've gone, even though they haven't necessarily got blocks on them, they've made them difficult to complete.
Great centering pass in the middle there, and Bono on the other side of the pitch. Lisa Bono, rather.
It's going to be a foul in the middle of the pitch here. Maybe just a little bit of a collision as those players trying to get into position.
And the disc will be checked back in, and a violation on the field as players maybe moved a little too early, and play will resume once more.
I think part of that as well is just need to be a bit more vocal on that, still just making sure everyone knows exactly when the disc is coming back in.
I agree, that's often a rather important thing that's sometimes missed out on. A great defensive effort by the Russian player, but the number 19 shirt for the French collecting the disc.
It's going to be another call here. Looked like there was a pick maybe saying that couldn't catch up with the player they were intending to mark after there was a couple of players coming across each other there, but I think look like they perhaps also thinking about a switch, so we'll see how this gets resolved.
It's great to see these players discussing and solving it. So we can see the wind picking up a lot here, flags flying high.
There's been a little bit blustery this week, but not too much. This is, again, a little bit stronger than we've seen at most points this week. Something that I always take for granted as a native English speaker is that obviously English being the default language for Ultimate means that got an inherent advantage when it comes to call, but a lot of the times in these international situations where you see two countries who are speaking it as a second language, sometimes quite a lot, in fact, you'll have the spirit captain be someone who's more proficient in English, so it means that they can come in and help aid discussions where necessary.
Yeah, it's great that the players have the opportunity to talk about it and discuss and get the time to try and understand each other before sending the disc back. And you can see Colleen with the disc there. There's a lot of hand signals. There's a contested foul, it appears, and the disc will go back to the initial thrower in Borno.
Yeah, pretty slow start to the pace of this game after a very clean first point from France. This point's dragged on a little bit here. There's been a couple of protracted calls, and that's something that is a little bit understandable when there can be that language barrier and when teams have that metaphorical and sometimes literal feeling out process as well, just trying to work out exactly how much contact we're happy to play with.
There was a great reset and over to Bono, to Colleen again, who seems to be an anchor for this French side. Bono to Bono. Finding a reset there, and not a lot of option, but puts in a great inside flick and fakes a huge shot there, and over to the break side, and the motion over to the 21 shot of Bono, right in front of their end zone. Now shuts it, doesn't come off, and now she's looking for a quick dish over the top. Can she get there? Yeah, great play. The two sisters, Lismo and Eva Bono, doing so much for this team. That was great connection between the two. Just they trust each other so much with these throws. Just looking for each other all the time. Great play. And this is the first break of the game for the French side.
Good start here for France, getting a nice clean hold and then generating a few turnovers. They'd like to convert a little bit quicker, but they do eventually do so and utilize the break space very well here. Got the disc nice in front, out and early before the 40 can get set. They got trapped a little bit here on that front end zone cone, but makes the eyes just as where they want it to go. Little high release backhand, putting a lot of faith in her sister, and Lisson Bono repays that faith. Elevating, snagging it, making sure she's in bounds as well. France taking a 2-0 lead early on in this contest.
That was a very contested point, a very long one. Let's see if both teams can clean it up a little bit and maybe change up their looks and surprise us with some stuff right here at the showcase pitch, as we can see the Russian O-line taking the field one more time.
Be interested to see if the French change their defensive set a little bit here. Throw a couple of different looks. Something we've seen French do very effectively in some of the other divisions here is keep their opponent guessing early on.
I think that's exactly what they're doing now, coming up in a zone as Zyukova in the middle of the pitch puts it over to the sideline, but demands disc a lot. She's trapped at the far side of the pitch, working one and two with Leontieva. Over to the middle, across to Kosireva. Not a lot of movement down the field, very stagnant. French clogging the lanes very effectively. Vasyukova now back to the middle. Leontieva just trapped, doesn't see anything. She likes puts the swing over.
It feels like the downfield players all have their relative positions where they want to be, but I'd like to see them cross over each other a little bit more, try and draw defenders out of space. A big shot goes over the top and is well defended there by Borno, getting herself on the stat sheet. Quite a lot early doors here.
Yeah, I agree. The Russians don't seem to see a lot of options to go through the holes here, and as the French have a kind of a shorter field opportunity to get in. Look at the great movement by the number 13 shirt of Roland as the French work it up the field easily. Over to Bono, back to Roland. Bono and Roland going 1 and 2, and up into the zone for another French score and the second break in the road. Well, showing great fingertips grabbing this disc. Yeah, the French look great.
Bordeaux is absolutely unstoppable here for France. That's her second assist already. She scored on the first point. She's thrown both of the assists for these two French breaks, and she's got a couple of blocks as well. You saw her there coming through from the deep space, getting in the way. The first Russian O point, she got a couple of deep blocks as well. So every time the French have generated blocks, it's come through the hands of Bordeaux. There was one time that the Russians turned themselves over on a shot towards this sideline, but otherwise it's been blocks out of the hand of Eva Bordeaux, having a fantastic game here for the French. If the Russians can't find a way to limit her influence on this game, it's going to go south for them pretty quickly.
I agree, and I love that we've seen France find their rhythm, and their rhythm is amazing. Just seeing them work so quickly in small space and connecting so with Bordeaux and all these great handlers very quickly. Yeah, I know now, and I can see, and I think we can all see why the French are undefeated so far.
Yeah, and not just undefeated, but generally pretty convincing. That first game, 15-1 over Israel, is a great way to start a tournament. And then they've played a couple of tight games as well, 11-8 over Italy and 14-12. So it's, in a way, you want to see both of those sorts of wins against teams that are not quite at the same level. You want to be able to keep that foot down, keep the pedal to the metal, go full intensity the entire game, but also against top teams, being able to pull out those closer contests shows a lot of mental fortitude.
As Russia will field the pole now over to Kushinova over at the sideline. We can see Vasyukova doing the anchoring of this O-line here. And a great shot into space right in front of their end zone, and now in the middle of the end zone. But there will be a call on the field. A violation is signaled by the Russians. As the Irish women are working by, I did not see what was exactly going on, but can see great movement finding the holes. Oh, a travel, it was called by the French player there.
Legitimately as well, and what a pickup that is.
Great hands. Great grab, keeping it in possession. Vasyukova trying to get a dump off, and it gets it into the middle of the field, and now she's gonna look for the end zone. Great collection, but now by the 63 shirt of Stachova rather, for the goal. Great movement, and just Russia shaking a bit, but using their ability to see those holes of the French defense now and putting their first point on the board.
Nice calm possession there for Russia. They did a very good job in the red zone. When they didn't see what they liked, this is again that brilliant layout snag getting low to the ground from Kazakova. But rather than try and force it in, as the adrenaline often wants you to do, just taking the wise thing, finding the reset to Vasyukova, and the cut from Stachova eventually develops towards this open side. Just a little bit of a shimmy, gets free towards the front side. Nothing the defender can do about it. And a clean hold for Russia to get their first point on the board. 3-1. They're still behind, though. And we didn't see Eva Bordeaux on the field at that point. And so, obviously, you can't have someone go all the time. But it's interesting to see that already it seems to be there a marked difference between when she is and isn't on the pitch. And that just shows the influence that she's having over this game already.
I think playing with 3 points in a row, you can give her 1 point off. So we see a great pull by the Russians. That was maybe the best pull we've seen so far. As the steady French handlers take the field once more, and Russia puts up their zone again. Just overshooting the number 4 shirt of Olivier, and Russia get a chance to get a break back as Vasyukova, the steady handler, will field the disc and shoot immediately long for the end zone, and well collected by the number 23 shirt. A great throw over and back for the goal. The number 23 shirt not on our rosters yet, but doing great stuff for this Russian side, and that was a quick break. They did not hesitate to put it up, put it deep, and easily collect the goal. And I loved how they put in the effort and but still took their time.
One of the things you're seeing there is the advantage of crossing some of your stronger handlers over to play on the D-line, and the Russians don't have a particularly large roster in terms of numbers here, so not a surprise to see players go both way. And Koshmanova looking around, not really liking what she sees after collecting the deep pass, does the right thing, takes an open reset, the throw pops up out of the hands but is well collected at the second attempt, and continuing that cut towards the end zone was Koshmanova. Having another look at the replay, just pops through the hands of Gosireva, but quickly continued towards that far sideline. Just good backup there, not letting the disc go down, making sure that there was someone ready to collect the trash.
So we can see the French O-line once more, and this will roll, and the Russians will be able to pin the French offense at the cone there in the middle of the end zone. Great shot from Roland in the middle, over to Fonset. Back to Fonset, who's in the middle of the pitch right now. We can see the French moving it very, very quickly, you know, throwing it and moving on to try and get that immediate reset. And great stuff, just contently throwing it from side to side. Roland now on this near side of the pitch. Oh, great grab, keeping her hands around the disc as the Fonset is just getting every other on this possession here. Roland back to Fonset.
If I may mix sports metaphors here, I've heard people call this Barcelona Frisbee. People who watch a lot of football will know that it's all about taking these quick, short passes, making these little triangles so you've got defenders isolated around and you can find a couple of easy, quick options around them.
I would love to call it French Frisbee now, from now on.
Certainly if they continue to play this way, I think that's a fair call.
They're doing such a great job just opening up so many parts of the field by just moving these marks so very quickly. As we can see, Roland back on the disc, putting it into space. Over to draw. Roland looking for a deep option now and puts it over the top. And can hold on to it, just falling in and out of the hands of the French receiver as Vasyukova is going to put it in one more time. And great movement to the other side of the pitch, back into the steady hands of Vasyukova, who's going to distribute the disc up the field as a huge shot comes off. Well collected by Zvonareva, who's now pinned and just too far for Vasyukova, who can't hold on to the disc, and the French will get another shot at a point.
That outside in edge means that the disc gets towards the ground a little bit quicker. If you get a little bit flatter, it's just going to hang up a tiny bit more, and it's going to give you more of an opportunity to run it down.
Great shot through the middle here. Perfectly collected by Ruel. Over to Roland. French just using all of their players and moving the disc so quickly through this Russian zone look. Bono on the sideline here, over to Roland, who's going to put up a huge shot. I mean, is it going to be collected? No, the receiver can get a hand to it. Fonquette a little shaken up by the arcing side arm there, and Russia will get it back once again.
It feels like the French are doing so much really well, but they've just had some silly turnovers the previous point. They did a very good job of opening up so much space in the middle, but these little over-the-tops, they haven't quite got the rating right on them, and they've thrown them too far on a couple of occasions now. So that's something they've really got to iron out, because they're spacing the Russian defense out nicely, but they're not hitting the opportunities that they're creating for themselves.
Exactly, as you can see some great movements by the Russians themselves. Wasyukova up with a great lefty backhand there, and a huge fake by Katsakova over to Wasyukova again, and into space for Kozyreva to collect it. Huge movement, great cuts by this Russian offense. And Wasyukova just always there in the dump space, collects it and distributes that again, doing so much and puts it in for a goal. Beautiful lefty inside break for Kozyreva for the score.
I don't think that I know a lefty handler who doesn't love that inside backhand. So often players are worried about that around, and every lefty I know has a killer inside-out backhand, and we see it here out of the hands of Wasyukova, getting her second assist of the game. Gets low, really leans into it. It's quick, and there's nothing that the defender can do about it. Hits Kazakova right in stride.
That was some amazing piece of defensive offense here by the Russians. Just after a couple of silly turnovers and just not being very focused, they managed to find their rhythm and work it up all the way to the other side of the pitch. And the French also give them these options. They've come out so strong, but now Russia has gotten everything back, and I believe we are back on serve, Benji.
We are indeed. It's definitely been a game of runs. Clean hold to start this game for the French, and then they had a couple of breaks, and now then a clean hold from the Russians, and they've had a couple of breaks. So both sides putting runs of 3 points together, and it's always interesting, especially with younger players, is having that mental strength to say, just forget about what we've done to an extent. Obviously, we don't want to get broken. We want to learn from the lessons that we've had. But also, just a couple of bad points doesn't necessarily define who we are as a team.
Exactly, as we can see the same line of handlers out one more time for this French O-line. As we can see Fonquette in the middle of the pitch over to Bourneau. And Bourneau just putting in so much work again for this team. That is her sister, Lisson.
Playing against this zone defense doesn't necessarily physically tire you out, so being able to trot out the same O-line a few points in a row isn't quite such a difficult thing as it can be against a really stifling match defense. That's a beautiful
shot into space here. Well collected by Drouot. And back over to Ronlard, who distributes a lot of those discs into the hands of Ruel. Looking for a reset, and great cut by Ronlard to get it into space. She's looking at the end zone now, right? And puts up a great shot over to Bourneau, and great collection by the number 24 shirt of Drouot, and Eva Bourneau with another score to her name.
It's difficult to see how you can stop this, because we've seen that if you try and force her away from the disc, she can be a good cutter. She's more than comfortable with the disc in her hands. She's been an absolute menace defensively as well. It's obvious to say that's the key to this game for Russia, trying to stop Eva Bourneau. But it's one of those things that is certainly easier said than done. That was easy for me to say.
In addition, it's not only Bourneau. Bourneau is doing so much work at the end, but there's also so many great handlers for this French team that are just happy to swing it so many times. And they have had their struggling start, but they've always still collected and came back from it as well.
That's partly why it's been so frustrating seeing some of these French turns against this Russian zone, because they've been able to just inch their way down the pitch so comfortably usually that it's a little bit strange when they go for something a little bit more ambitious and overthrow it. That's partly what these zones are preying on, is they're relying the fact that you don't have that discipline to just really slowly piecemeal your way down the field. And they're relying on the fact that eventually you're going to get a little bit overzealous and take one of those shots that aren't quite as easy to execute.
Exactly. So let's see what this French defense can do now, and maybe get a break on this Russian team once more.
Yeah, on serve at the moment in this contest at 4-3, but it's certainly been a bit more. It's been a bit more up and down than perhaps that scoreline would suggest.
We always love an up and down game with a lot of action as the pole is starting here. And Stakova, he'd pick it up now. Over to Vasyukova. Back to Stakova. Over to the other side of the pitch. They have great lateral movements, the Russians, as they overshoot Vasyukova. And the French get an opportunity to break.
There was definitely an opportunity there for that catch to be made. It was a little bit high, but I think she got a little bit too far underneath it. This is a mixture of a slightly difficult throw and a not completely well executed catch, and working behind. Did very well to keep that alive, but ground strips herself on the landing, calls herself down. That is good spirit. Fantastic to see from the French 19 shirt.
She has great spirit, but is very unhappy with herself that she couldn't keep her hands on that disc. As we see Vasyukova putting the disc back into play for the Russian side. Stakova back, and you can see a great throw through the middle of the cup to Kazakova. Vasyukova back with the disc. Handler's just moving it around against this French zone. And into the middle, back to Kazakova, who's done some great cuts in the middle, just behind that first line of defenders. Stakova working 1 and 2 with Leonteva. Stakova shoots it through the middle, but well collected. And back to Vasyukova at the near side of the pitch. And she's gonna put it up big into the zone. Is it gonna be collected? And tipped by the French receiver. Amazing defense. Oh, 3 players going up to the disc, but the French player in the back is gonna be the one to collect it, gets a piece of it and smacks it out of the back, at the back of the end zone.
A little bit of a moonball here from Vasyukova. Sees and finds a receiver in the end zone. It's her favorite target, Kazakova, but just gets a little too much underneath it and it drifts over her head. Good body positioning there from the French defender. Kazakova couldn't backpedal and get there in time with the French defender already sitting in that space.
So a great opening shot by the French there. And as she overshoots her target, and Russia will have a very short field to work with as Vasyukova puts it up for Zvonareva for the goal. Great shot, and quickly to pick up, catching the French defense off guard and putting in a goal. And this is a hold for Russia.
Yeah, again, not clean, but this is the first time in it's actually, I think, the first time all game that we've seen holds from either side following each other, which is most unusual given that we're tied up at 4-4 in this contest. And we see that again, that's that good bodying position from Lucy Nye at the back of the end zone.
Yeah, Noah doing a great job there, positioning herself behind the play. Maybe already seeing that this will be too high up for the Russian player to get under it.
And on that final scoring shot, Vasyukova does a very good job. She recognizes that that force is very flat, probably worried about that inside backhand, and she takes that opportunity, quickly leans out into that flick, gets it past the mark, nothing she can do about it, and Zvonareva makes a comfortable catch for the goal and tying us back up at 4 apiece.
Thank you. As we can see the French O-line take the field, Wroclaw comfortably collecting that pole, going 1 and 2 with her fellow handlers.
See the flags really fluttering a little bit in the background there, so the wind's picking up a little bit now, going from left to right on your screen, so this is the downwind direction.
It's great work, and Russia happy with that zone. I think this works well for them as Wroclaw gets every other here. Just great movement by the young French player. Just doesn't have to do a lot of things. There's not a lot of pressure on the handler, just putting it up every time. Wroclaw doing a great job there, finding always the right place to be at as they slowly move on over the half of the pitch as a run-through defense by the Russian player, and they got into a rhythm a bit too much, and Russia just takes the opportunity they get to get in that break as a great inside shot by Stakova on to her fellow player, and she's gonna put it back into the middle for Leontieva, who's gonna search for an open option, and the number 28 shirt of Nikolina can't keep her hands with it. As Wroclaw's gonna put up a huge hug, but it's gonna be too far. 3 French players in stride to get there, but none of them got the legs to put it in, as the Russians will have another opportunity to work it up the wind, up the field into their end zone.
It's the first time we've really seen the French look deep, and you can understand why, because there were plenty of receivers converging towards it, but just too far out in front from Wroclaw. And after the Russians got the turn, they found Gerard being a little bit greedy with one of those swings, tried to smuggle a few too many yards, couldn't capitalize, but they are going to get it now at the second time of asking.
Stokova is with the disc, and disc is on the ground, but there was going to be a foul call. French player just being a bit too close, but immediately uncontested, and the disc will be back in the hands of Leontieva. French with a zone of their own, and can she get there? Great recovery shot from Kashireva. Leontieva a little frustrated with her players as they seem a bit tired, and the shot goes over the top. Can she get there? No. Defended by the French so well and popped into the zone with a quick dish off. Great reaction by the number 44 shirt of Girard for the French side. Just recognizing the disc, catching it, and immediately throwing it on to her teammate for the score.
Juliette Rourel getting her second goal of the game, and that Russian offense against the French zone was all very cluttered. Everything was very close in. You could see they were going for these big, expansive fakes, really trying to space things around, but the French defenders weren't really playing ball necessarily. They saw where all the players were. They weren't biting on them, just didn't quite have the snap in those fakes. Maybe that was going to convince them that it was going to go, and in the end, just trying to put a high release over the top, give someone a chance to make a play, but it hung up too much. Everyone converged on it. When there's so many players underneath it, it's really difficult for a receiver to come down cleanly. Often, 2 players on the same team end up almost defending each other because they're both going up for it because they know that they have to make the catch. And in the end, it came down into the hands of Flora Girard, looked upfield, saw Ruel wide open in the end zone, took the easy pass for the 5-4 lead.
Yeah, great composure by the French, and easy to pick up this disc and a hold for them after struggling a little bit. And now the French D-line will take the field one more time. Great pull into space for Stakova to pick up. The French will go back out in their zone that has worked so good for them so far. Stakova with the disc, forced to go back, lose some yards. Razukova doesn't see other options that she likes, has to dish it over to her teammate. Razukova pushed back a lot again as she throws up a huge hammer to the other side and can't get there. Very good opportunity there, but the Russian player just jumping, but can't drill it, and it's too high up as the French will get a short field to work with.
It feels like with that hammer, she's trying to throw it right at the receiver, whereas actually been better leading her slightly further downfield into space so she's got time to roll onto it a little bit. As it is, she can't quite get a read on it. It goes overhead out of the far sideline, and the French choosing to take our time out here in the red zone with an opportunity for a break to restore a 2-point advantage.
I don't actually know if I like that choice too much, because these Russian players are a very tight squad of only, I believe, 15 players, and the French are so many, and they have had some great movement every time when they started with a short field opportunity and a quick dish, catching the defense off guard. And I would have loved to see them get another one of these quick points in.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I think part of the issue there, with it just kind of fading all the way out of the far sideline, it meant that the French defence had a chance to get set up anyway. So in a way, I do see what you're saying. There's not necessarily a need to take a timeout with it just going out of the sideline, because with the 15 seconds or the requisite time it would take to bring the disc inbounds, you could probably get a set play put up anyway. Maybe, I guess the timeout gives you an extra chance to talk about what you want that set play to be, but I think I'm in your camp here. Obviously, I appreciate the need to try and be a bit more calm and a bit more measured with what you want to do downfield, but I feel that you should be prepared in that sort of scenario to know exactly what you want your default offense to be.
Yeah, let's see what this French team can put out of this timeout. If they have set up, when they're setting up in a split stack, probably trying to isolate a cutter or two. That's an interesting look for an end zone play. You can see two players on either side of the pitch, and both of the players near the disc trying to get open, and there's going to be a poach, and it's going to be collected by the French player. Amazing play! Great grab! Amazing hands by the young Lison Bonneau to get the disc.
I don't think it's unfair to say that. That's probably not how they drew that up. Looking downfield, nothing was free, so they turned, isolated the reset. Alice Fioncette went up line, but it was actually very good recognition there from Valeria Vasyukova. She knew what they wanted. She sat in that space. Maybe they telegraphed it a little bit, but she got a hand in there, but didn't quite get enough. The issue, especially when there's a little bit of a wind, if you don't catch those Ds, there's always a potential for other players to come in and make those second effort grabs, mopping up the spillages, and that's exactly what we saw there. Fantastic focus from the French receiver, and we're going to get another look at it now on the replay, pivoting around, not really seeing a huge amount, so the up line goes, it's overcooked. Vasyukova can only tip it again, and once, twice, three times, lucky, into the hands of Borneau, and that's going to...
I actually think that this was exactly how they wanted to do it. Put in a goal on a short field opportunity, no turns. I think that's the perfect way. You would, as a coach, you gotta be happy with how this worked out.
I think they got away with that one a little bit.
I know, but still, they put in a goal. They did not turn the disc over, and they got a break.
It's one of those interesting things where could have tried, I think, a mixture of separating the result from the process. Yes, we got the goal, we got what we wanted, but there's definitely some things we can clean up there for the next time we get into that situation. So
Russia will have to get it up the wind now as they got broken. And there's a huge shot from Koskova, getting into indeed by Olivier, who's got up high for the French defense and just read the disc a bit better, in great position.
Zvonareva saw it early, but she looked like she was a little bit timid, gave away a little bit of a window, and Olivier muscled in to get that body position, but there's nothing they can do with it. And
there's an immediate turnover again, and the Russians will start with a better field position to try and punch in that goal. Vasyukova over to Stakova in the middle, to Leonteva over to Vasyukova again. Vasyukova searching for options. Great around break with her lefty backhand back to her. She's been amazing for this offense so far, and she's getting every other by not even doing too much, just standing in the right position and distributing this. Stakova, great work, and over to Vasyukova, who can't keep her hands on the disc. Unfortunate, goes for the two-handed catch on the ground, but can't keep her hands on the disc, as the French will pick up once more. Ballerina turn fake here as she's trapped on the side and doesn't see a lot of option, puts it into great inside shot and movement over to the other side of the pitch. as the young French player is gonna shoot it deep, but there's only a Russian body under the disc, putting it out of the play is Leonteva with a great defensive effort.
I'm not entirely sure what the French players saw there, because Leonteva always had position on that. Maybe they were worried about turning it over so close to their own end zone, because the previous Russian possession, although it resulted in a turnover, it was a little bit unfortunate. I think it has to say Vasyukova got two hands to it, just couldn't hold on. And the Russian D-line offense in that red zone put on a clinic of just taking what the defense gives you. It didn't matter whether it was a little 2-yard pop in front of you or a kind of boring, slightly unsatisfactory swing. If that's the option that they're giving you and it's free, just take it, constantly move it around, keep that stall count as low as you can, make the defenders into a difficult position. There's an earlier deep swat away from Chloé Olivier.
Great highlight shots we can see there as the Russians take a timeout of their own. And we've seen great clinical offenses from both teams, and then a lot of struggling as well. And I can't really make out what the difference is in that offensive pressure, because the defense is always very tight and trying to get as many discs as possible in there. What do you think, Benji? What's the difference in there for the teams?
I think part of this is rhythm, especially as an offense. You really want to go out there, you want to nail it down all the way down the field in one possession, and if you can't, it can get into your head a little bit. I think it's one of the things, if we see a team that would be able to get a clean point, a no point on the board, or maybe a couple on the board, then we'd see them maybe begin to string a few together as you really hit that rhythm. You know exactly what you want to do. Your offense is nailed in. It's got everything exactly where it should be, but often when you have a couple of turnovers, you maybe go out of what your comfort zone is a little bit. You try things that are somewhat different in order to try and get things going a little bit, go for looks that perhaps you're not quite so comfortable with.
As we are back in the game with Russia on the sideline, there's going to be a discussion, and the French are setting up their zone look, trying to pin the Russians at the far side, but they're not letting that happen and working it all the way to the other side of the field. Great movement there by the Russian offense. Vasyukova in the middle of the pitch now, working 1 and 2 with Stakova. Back to Vasyukova. This French team taking away all their options downfield, but there's, again, not a lot of movement as Vasyukova puts it to the sideline and gets it back right away.
I was very impressed with the way the Russians initiated off that timeout. They would have had a downfield look in mind, but as soon as the French set up in that zone, they were like, right, let's do something different. Let's swing it around the back and get the disc in motion.
And a great inside shot for the goal for Russia. Zvonareva doing putting in great work for this Russian team, just pushing her defender all the way to the line and getting back in the middle for the easy inside backhand shot, as the force couldn't set on the French side yet. A great look there, great recognition, and that's what we want to see from this Russian team, flowing, using their bodies to just move around the French defense, fake them out, as we see this great shot again here. So we see Svonareva pushing her defender all the way to the sideline and getting that inside shot.
You need to know, as a defender, exactly where you are positioned on the field, because that close to the sideline, there comes a point when you can give that up a little bit, because there's such a narrow window to throw it into. It's really unlikely to go. But she pursued over to the break side. She needs to remember that she can trust her force to try and stop that. The open side is the really important side that you want to defend, but she went with it for too long, and as soon as those hips flipped, Zvonareva was able to plant and change direction, and there was nothing the defender could do about it.
And that's what I want to see from this Russian side, just clinical offense. We all know they can do it, as they're going to be back out on defense for this French team. Roland collects the great shot in the middle over to Fonquette, back to Roland. Now they're going with 3 handlers instead of the 4 they've had so far to work against this Russian zone look, as they're using their momentum to get around, and Roland in the middle just pushing it through to Bono, who gets every other now. Bono back on the field for this great French team and working through the zone with ease. Roland over to Fonquette. Back to Roland. Now Lison Bono. Oh, and bit of a miscommunication on this French side there. Just the dump shot a bit too long into the wrong direction as the Russians are looking for a break. And a huge flick into the hands of nobody, unfortunately. Overcooking it a bit, getting caught by the wind, this throw by Sakova, and the French are back on offense once more.
With the angle that disc coming out, that big outside in, Kosirova needs to really make sure that she's tracking that towards the far sideline immediately, but got too far underneath it. Fortunately for Russia, there's nothing that the French could do on their second opportunity.
And Russia gets another opportunity in the red zone. And they're beautifully working around a crazy catch by the number 1 shot of Kosireva. She's looking for her dump, who immediately fakes her away and puts up a great Adam into space and back into the middle for Leontieva. And up the line, Sakova doing so much, and into the hands of Koshmanova for the score on the Russian side. And I believe, is that a break?
It is indeed. We're now tied back up at 6s. Every time it feels like someone's going to begin to pull away in this game, the pendulum swings back the other way, and Sakova finding her option in the end zone for the goal.
As we are keeping our stats here at this during this game, it's patterned so beautifully. There's been 3 points for the French so far, 3 points for the Russian, then a bit of a holding pattern, and then the French are managing to break, and Russia immediately after holding, breaking back once more. What a great game we have there on their hands. Neither team really getting out on top, and that's exactly what we want, a close, intense game. So France will get another opportunity to get a point right here. As Vasikova is going to pull for this French side, and it's a huge pull all the way, a great length on it, but will not come back in bounds, and French will collect it in the middle of the field at the break point. Langlois to pick up, and we see a new French O-line on the field with Noah, who can't reel it in, and Russia another opportunity of a rather short field to get a break in a third break in a row, as Vasikova with the disc puts it over to Kosireva, and Vasikova up the line but well defended, puts it back in the middle to Kasakova, and huge around shot into the end zone for the number 10 shirt of Zvonareva, who's done a great stuff for Russia so far, getting the 3rd goal of the game. Great continuation on this break side, and the Russians are in a bit of a momentum right here, getting a 2nd break in a row.
Now, for the first time all game, we've got Russia in the lead here. Beautiful shot, comes out of the hands, right in stride. Vlorova has to go towards the ground, but she does secure that catch. Expertly done. And now, as we mentioned, Russia in the lead. 7-6, going to be a half-time at 8. And we'll see how France can dig themselves out of this position. As we've mentioned, they've had a couple of close games so far this tournament, and they've been able to come up the victor in those contests. So we'll see if maybe the Russians can have a little bit something that they haven't seen before.
I think Russia will have a little bit of a struggle later on because there are only 15 players on their roster, and the French have many more. I believe it's 6 more players that the French are fielding, and it is day 3. Both teams have had intense matches so far, and maybe some legs are getting tired. I could imagine this being an issue later during this game, as we can see France on offense one more time. Russia working it with their zone. Number 44, Girard on the disc, putting it over to Roland.
The Russian under-20 open side is here on the sideline, being as loud as possible, just having an extra thing to think about now for the French handlers as they can see if they can tune them out.
Exactly, a huge shot over to the number 4 shot of Olivier, right in front of the end zone. Just searches for option, but puts it back and gets it right back again. Girard with the disc now. Disc is fielded in the middle of the pitch now. Not a lot of movements by the French stacks. Apps for the reset back to Girard, who's going to put it up, and a great defensive layout by the young 63 shirt of Stakova, who's gonna take an injury substitution, as she might have put on a bit of a hot take with the ground there. She's lying down on the side, and I hope she's going to be okay because she's done a great job for this Russian team so far.
Got her hands on the midsection, so it's quite a lot of these times when you get these full extension forward layout blocks and layout grabs is that you land right on the solar plexus and knock the wind out of yourself.
Amazing layout by Vasikova to keep possession alive here for this Russian team, and up the line work, and whoa, a great layout attempt, but there's gonna be an out of bounds call.
I'll have to get a second look at it on the replay. Just so the discussion here is about exactly when that catch occurs and whether she has any part of her body on the line. We see it here. Here comes the down the light shot.
I actually thought she could not keep it in her hands.
I think that looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, it looks in bounds.
A couple of the players are asking if we have an angle of it.
I think we can see it rather well on this screen right here.
Obviously, ideally, we'd have a representative from both teams here so they can get a look at it rather than having one team coming round.
So we can see the replay right here. Great inside shot, and we can see we can hear the Russians calling it in, and the French representative also calling the disc in bounds as she will keep possession.
Yeah, it's Flora Girard, the player who initially made the out-of-bound calls, then looked at the replay and said, okay, I was wrong in this situation. I can see that you've definitely in bounds, and good work, but they can't capitalize. They had a couple of, maybe 3 layout saves that possession, but the 4th time was just a touch too much.
One too many, and as Roland gets us going here for the French side, looking for options, but just swinging it over to the other side of the pitch. Drouot with a great continuation cut, getting every other now with Girard. To Roland on the other side of the pitch. The Russians look a little tired by now as the French work it through their zone rather easily, as Girard puts it over to Roland for a break and immediately putting it in. I love this play by Roland, just not keeping the disc in her hand for even a second, as they're happy to just grab it here. Roland back with the disc now. A great layout to save possession from the number 24 Charlotte Fognon. Working 1 and 2 with Roland now through the middle, and a great defensive effort by the young Russian player, just reading that play and getting horizontal for the great defense. Kazireva there, amazing work by the young Russian players. We can see the replay here.
Just an insane explosion, reading the play really well and then putting her body on the line. Polina Kazireva made sure that the French could not secure that catch, and now the Russians going to take a timeout, knowing that if they could break here, they'd take an 8-6 lead into the second half. And we've seen this a couple of times actually from the French. They work the disc so nicely down the pitch, and when they get into the red zone, they find things a little bit more difficult, as obviously there's a lot less space to work with. Everything becomes a lot more compressed. And they've really tried to be aggressive, exploiting those gaps downfield, but actually, I think they'd be almost better off just taking those resets, partly because it will open up a little bit more space for them, as it would bait those Russian defenders to come a bit further forward. It would open up those little pocket of space in behind, because at the moment when they get down in towards the red zone, those little underbellies that they're looking for aren't there anymore, because the defenders are all so close in, because there's no deep space for a defender to be dragged away from, because everything's right there.
Exactly, and the French players worked it up so easily, up all the way in front of their end zone, and then they got a little bit what we call end zone happy, maybe just too narrow of a look right into an open player that was open but not quite enough for this great defensive effort of the #1 shirt by the Russian team. So we will now get back into play with Russia having another opportunity of a break for half time.
Looks like the Russians are going to come out in a traditional 2-5 vertical set. Interesting to see whether the French choose to play this in an honest match-up defense, or whether they try and poach or scramble around this. Certainly, especially off the timeout, if I see a team coming out in a stack, I'm going to poach players into those spaces that I know I want them to attack, and force them not to just run a system, but to use their ultimate brain a little bit.
I think that's exactly what the French are doing right now. And there is a miscommunication and a great defensive effort by Lison Bonneau to smack the disc down to the ground, as the other Bonneau sister is, Lison Bonneau is to pick up and putting it over to Roland, but there's a discussion and it's going to be a retracted call, and Roland is going to be with the disc.
I love the jab step by Roland on that dump cut. She really sold the defender with just that one big plant that she was going to go up the line. She really bit and allowed that space for an easy free reset.
Yeah, Roland with the disc now, just looking for option, doesn't find anything she likes, and puts it up for the end zone, greatly collected by Ruel, and into the end zone for a quick score from Roland. Great movement up the line, working in a great small space. That player is so explosive. She has such quick steps, and exactly what you said before, that quick dump, she could easily just take one step and then immediately turn direction super fast. And I'm so impressed by her movement, and then she has the throws with it as well.
This is something that you see, that I think you see quite a lot out of players who are of smaller stature. They don't necessarily have the deep speed that some of the taller players have. Obviously, with those longer strides, it's a bit easier to cover the ground. But in those short spaces, they're so difficult to cover. They've got that instant quickness, and as well, that low center of gravity means it's a little bit easier to turn and jink your way free in those reset or those up the line spaces. And after being a fantastic distributor, Roland goes up the line, gets her first goal of the game to go along with an assist, and now a first assist as well there. That point for Ruel to go along with her 2 goals earlier in this game, and we're now tied up at 7, going into Galaxy Point.
Galaxy Point.
I love to take half.
I love a good Galaxy Point now and then, and we've seen so many this week already. I'm actually so happy that this game is another one that's very tight, and French come out on defense. Let's see what they can do.
If Russia can score here, they've got the chance to do the classic 2 for none here, where you get 2 possessions because they'll be receiving out of the second half, and if they can score both cleanly, they'll keep the French offense off the field for a long time, and they won't get a possession, and they'll just see 2 points go by the wayside.
We can see the French go in there four-person cup zone again, and Russia just content to work it through there, as we are fortunate that Stachova is back on the field, puts up a huge disc over to Koshmanova, who is right in front of the end zone with a huge layout defense. The 88 shirt for France. France set with a great play. Amazing stuff, reading the disc perfectly and getting it just as she wanted to punch it in for a goal. And Russia is back on defense for this Galaxy point, and they get a defense right away. Koshmanova putting it back in what?
I think there's going to be a potential foul call on that defensive play. Just going to have the players come in to talk about it. You can see asking for translations. I thought Russia were going to turn over on their initial deep shot. It looked like it was meant for Zvonareva, but Koshmanova does a very good job of tracking it from the backside, chasing it down. Couldn't capitalize though. And
that looks like a lot of contact on that play from the Russian defender. But they will have a look, talk about it.
See the two players here engaged in discussion, goes up quite early. There is definitely a bit of a contact there. The question is always going to be about how much that contact affected the play.
I think although the Russian player did have position, both players were going up, so we'll see, as there's also going to be the captain of the French team going in to talk.
This is part of the reason why sides now all appoint spirit captains, so that there are any issues with discussions maybe, they've got a neutral figure on each team who can come in and help aid discussions, help provide rules clarifications, help provide translations.
Exactly, and normally, or in a lot of times, your spirit captain is going to be someone who speaks a good part of English to being able to translate your language to the other players on the pitch, since not all of the players here at this event speak English as their first or second language.
And obviously, as a native English speaker, I get very lucky that this isn't really a problem that we have. And generally in Western Europe, the level of English is pretty good as well. But some countries don't necessarily have that same level of English. So Russia, generally, while it is improving, it's just not necessarily a priority for them to learn English, which is totally fine. And that's why you see them appoint these very good English speakers as spirit captains, and they build up a reputation for really picking those calm heads who do the job very well, thinking about Elisa Tizik for the Russian senior women's side and Igor Namov for the men's senior side.
Yeah, I remember there was a lot of discussions with this Russian spirit captain on the open side that I've been part of, and at EUC, and watching them, especially against that Austrian team, where
that game got a little bit testy, I think it's fair to say.
A little bit of an intense spirit situation, but well resolved by both of these players. And an immediate long shot, it's never going to go back in bounds. I think that might have been a high stall situation, or just the French player wanting to get rid of it, as this foul is going to be contested, but the Russians taking the disc back for another opportunity to punch in their goal for half, as Vasyukova is going to field the disc. Vasyukova looking for her dump over to Stachova, and there's a lot of movement, but great defensive pressure as well from the French. Vasyukova looks for a downfield option, trying to punch it, and tries to direct throw, but there's a travel call over at the other side of the field. Leonteva just couldn't keep her feet on the ground and will be punched back in for Stachova, who's going to put it in for Vasyukova. Great movement as one of those amazing lefty backhands of hers. One more of those, and into the end zone for the easy collection. Kozeva with a great great cut to the end of the pitch, collecting it, and Russia taking half. That was an amazing first half of the game. No team really getting the better of the other one. Great intensity, as we will take a short break and be back with you soon for second half action that is gonna hopefully be as close as this first half was. Stay with us and we'll be back soon. Welcome back to this under 20 women's game as we get started in the second half with Russia receiving on this end. Sakova with the disc at the sideline and immediately throws it away.
This is one of those really difficult throws, is that little short sidearm. It's difficult to try and get enough revolution on it without getting it to go too far, and that's why you see a lot of players favour the offhand, backhand. That time just had a little bit of the wrong edge on it, tried to reach out but could only mack it further out of the sideline. So France with an opportunity to break here to take us back level apiece.
Roland is going to field the disc and put it over. Great inside shot, but is going to go with the around flick over to the other side of the pitch, and great intensity there by the French player, reeling it in. It's going to go over to Roland. Great cut under pressure, and she's going to boost up the line, and it's going to be too far out in front of the quick French handler.
I think that's the first mistake we've seen from the hands of Eva Bourneau all game. Milan motored up line, the defender was left in the dust, but the throw was too far. She couldn't quite reel it in, and that turn of speed goes to waste. France could have leveled things now, but if Russia can march down and score, they'll have their first 2-point lead of the game.
As we can see, Vasukova trapped on the break side, getting off that inside flick. And Stakova now with the disc directing traffic. Back to Vasukova on the far side of the pitch, and gonna get a huge gainer there for the Russian team. Kazakova. And a drop. Unfortunately, couldn't keep her hands around the disc. And the number 24 shirt of Drouot is going to be quick to pick up and set up this French offense. As there's sidearm is going to be put up in and caught by the wind. Russian bodies under it, French bodies under it, but the disc will go to the ground.
I can scarcely remember an example of a throw that was so clearly affected by the wind. There was too much of the underside shoulder to the disc initially, so it would have been a difficult catch regardless. But with the wind playing havoc like that, there was nothing the French receiver could do.
And a huge shot into the end zone, well defended by the French player, and Kazakova can't keep her hands to the disc. Great idea to immediately shoot the disc with this receiver striking, but just a little bit too much float on there, so the French player could get under it.
And in a way, the second half starting in exactly the same way that the first half started. Vasyukova trying to shoot deep for her favourite target in the end zone, the number 8, Ksenia Kazakova. But once more, Eva Bourneau playing fantastic deep defence.
Bourneau getting off that shot to her sister. Huge hug as she's going to leave her feet into the end zone, easily collected by Drouot for the goal and the break. Great stuff from the French there for the second half. You're right, Benji. It's starting off like the first half with the French getting a goal, but only it's a break this time.
Good start to the second half from the French. They needed that. A French Russian goal would have opened up a 2-point advantage here. That's the advantage of getting that break in before half. And when you receive coming out, you get a chance to open up a bigger advantage. But this is a beautiful throw. Gets the low release, but shows a tiny bit of that outside edge throw. Gets a nice trajectory rolling back inbounds into the hands of Charlotte Drouot. And now France tying us back up at 8.
Losing her footing there for a second, but doesn't even affect the throw for a little bit. Great movement there, and I love the look of putting it into your into the end zone right away when you have a receiver in a one-on-one situation, because then you can isolate her and you prevent these other Russian defenders to make a bit of a help defense. So if you have a one-on-one matchup, the French are gonna put it in and are gonna get down with it. And that was just a great shot, and the Russians will get another shot of an offensive opportunity for a goal.
And this is part of the reason why I'd like to see a bit more match defense out of the French, because as we've seen there with Eva Brunot, even just giving up a little bit of size in the deep space, she's been fantastic with her body position. She's got up nice and early as well to make things difficult on the receiving end as well, with just so many more legs than the Russians. Just try and tie them out as much as they can, especially now the sun beating down. It's going to wear you down a little bit extra.
A huge hug by Vasyukova trying to get there, but Bonneau is quicker. She smacks the disc to the ground. Lison Bonneau on this defensive end, just not allowing the Russians to get a deep shot off, as there is another opportunity for the French. Second break in a row. Let's see if they can put it in, as Fonquette is going to pick up for this team. And Roland, another great cut. And she's going to hug it as well. Forel, who's going to not get her hands around it. Such a pity. I thought she was going to get there. And Vasyukova just very quick to pick up again for this French side, as she puts up a great inside shot. And it's going to be fielded again, and the French go out in a bit of a zone look, trying to stop the great movements from the Russian side.
I just think when you've got throws the quality of Vasyukova, you can't give them these freer, easier passes. As I say, that was not the best decision, trying to squeeze it right into the teeth of that cup. No call made. The French defender had position, but generally I would always think you want to make...
quick to pick up, and it's going to be deflected by her. And it's going to be a great deflection. Vasyukova making up for her earlier mistake. Just that quick movement and quick to pick up. Fast break situation for the French not working out this time. I think Russia have learned from it by being a victim of that for some part of the first half. And a huge shot into space, but can't collect it.
Yeah, just getting a little too much elevation on that one. French with a dream of a field position here, going to bring the disc in right from the front of the end zone, and a chance here to bring this game back on serve. And this seems so unlikely after they conceded that Galaxy point.
Fonquette with the disc here, putting it over to Roland. They're contently working it just between the handlers a couple of times. Bonneau with the disc now over to Fonquette again. They're losing yards, but happy with it, and they punch it in. 24 Drouot for the score and the second break in a row. And as you have predicted it, Benji, we are back on serve.
Getting herself very involved this second half. Charlotte Drouot. We're getting another look here at the goal on the replay. This is why it's not necessarily so bad to lose yards. Keeping the disc movement is always good, especially if you're throwing to players who are open, because you see that the force isn't quite in position, and it means they can get the low release breakout nice and early. Fantastic throw from Frioncet into the hands of Charlotte Drouot, collecting her third goal of the game. And now France back in front after giving up a little bit of ground to the Russians. Clearly they've got their heads reset during that halftime break and come out strong at the start of this second stanza.
Yeah, they've shown us a great performance for the start of the second half. The French, I do not know what they did during that halftime, but they came out firing. And they look amazing. They look fired up, Benji.
And we mentioned how Russia bringing the Russians bring a much smaller roster than their French counterparts. It's kind of compounded as well by the fact that Anastasia Mamontova is not playing this game. She's in Crocs here on the sideline. Looked like she had some sort of knee tuber grip on, so if she potentially if she was going to play, having that left knee problem, but hasn't been able to get on the field in this game. And when you've already got a short roster, it always seems to be that's the times that you have those injuries that you can scarcely afford.
And it's a pity to see that young Russian player not being able to take the field. Maybe she will recover and play some games later this week, as bodies are going to be even more tired, and Russia will go back on offense and taking the disc from the break point. Zakhrova, who's done a great part of defense and offense for this Russian team so far, fielding the pull.
What we're seeing is one of the other problems of pulling out of bounds, obviously, as well as sacrificing field position. You tip your hand a little bit earlier as to what you want to do defensively, and that means that the Russian offensive players can space themselves out a little bit more, seeing that the French were going to come out in that zone.
It looks like a bit of a poachy defense rather than a zone, as a huge attack from Vozikova goes up for the receivers, but there's two French bodies under it, and who other than one of the Bono sisters to collect that goal. Lison Bono this time fielding this disc for the French once again, as we can see a huge shot come off, but Deed, as this Russian defender is happy to run through and read the play to get the disc back one more time. Vazukova with the disc in the middle of the field. Over to Koshmanova, and another defensive effort, getting the disc right back for her team. You
can see that the Russians looking a little bit exasperated with each other. They're clearly not on the same page. Kind of thought there's not enough spaces, so I'm going to clear out. Thrower had other ideas and going to burn the timeout here is Fiancet, knowing that another break opportunity here would open up a 2-point advantage, and with time ticking on late in this game, that could be so much more difficult to inch back for the Russians.
It's a great idea from the young French player to get an isolation going maybe for this red zone opportunity, because they don't have a lot of yards to make up for until getting into the zone, and setting up for an isolation or just a set play is a great idea for this French D-line offense right here.
Something I want to see as well is a concerted effort to get the disc off this sideline early. Maybe have a couple of counts looking downfield, but then if it's not there, turn around, square up those hips and look into the middle of the pitch and get that swing off. Something I definitely don't want to see is Fiancet pick up the disc, square on the sideline and look immediately straight down the line. When you're doing that, half of your field of vision is off the pitch, and that's a space that's just not useful to you because you don't need to know what's going on there. That doesn't really help you at all, whereas actually you just, even not necessarily a full square 90 degrees, but 45 degrees into the angle, you're looking, you still get that look at the end zone, but in the peripheral vision there, you've got the down the line option. You can see the option in the middle of the pitch as well. Just that slight inward pivot gives yourself a full range of vision to look at, and it's a bit easy to see cuts develop.
I agree. So now the disc is going to be fielded by Fonquette, and she's already positioning herself the way you advised her to, just putting her hips into the direction of the field so she can have the best she can get in terms of vision.
And obviously as well as this, if you're looking straight down the line or straight into the middle, you tip your hand as to which way you want to go, and that allows defenders to maybe see, okay, we need to poach off into this space.
Great defensive effort there by the Russian teams. Fonquette getting high in the skull, kind of winning a launch one into the end zone for her teammate for the score. Great stuff. One pass into the end zone. Great thing there, and we've seen that happen a lot of times, or twice before actually, for this French team. Emise with the collection and the goal for the French side. What a great way out of the timeout, just immediately punching it in after not seeing a dish off for the into the middle of the field.
Both times they've taken these timeouts, they've converted them pretty much on the first pass, but neither time it would have been immediately how they drew it up. The first time they got a little bit lucky, a throw was defended but could only be tipped on. It was well caught in the second effort by Eva Borneau. And that time, you see, Fioncet looks into the middle of the field, doesn't like what she sees, turns, looks at reset, doesn't like that, turns down the line, doesn't like that either. In the end, just on and on, I mean, they're still clearly getting high, thinking if we're going to turn over, the thing to do here is get it into the end zone, get a bit of air under it, give a receiver a chance to make a play. And Aurore Langlois does exactly that, rises highest, takes it down on top of the pile, and France open up a 10-point lead. They had 3 points in a row to start the first half, and they've got 3 points in a row to start the second as well, now up 10-8.
Yeah, I hope Russia will get back their energy. They look a little down, a little unhappy with their team right now, and I hope they can get over it as the pull is fielded for Vasyukova, and a great layout to keep possession on this Russian side of things. And back to Vasyukova, who's going to distribute the disc for her teammates, and French zone putting more and more pressure on the Russian handlers as they swing it all the way over the field, and she fakes a huge throw and gets back into the middle for Vasyukova to pick it up. Russia just marching up the field. Not a lot of pressure between those handlers as they are now trapped at on the sideline, but managed to get a quick up the line pass. French bodies flying all around, and Stakhova on the other side of the pitch now. Just working it through the handlers still, Russia not seeing any deep option they like, any downfield. Cutters are well defended by the French players, as we see a great inside shot, and I do not know how she managed to keep possession of that disc. Great grab and a travel called for Kazakova, as she will get the disc back right in front of their end zone.
I'm with you. I don't quite know how Kazakova got there with so much traffic in the way and absorbed a little bit of contact as well, but good, strong, firm hands made sure that they just stayed within her possession.
As she is going to punch that disc back in and looking for the end zone for Kazakova for the score, and there's going to be a lot of bodies on there, but the small Russian player jumping over everyone else. Kazakova with the goal there, and the streak of breaks for the French side is broken by the Russian hold, as this is their first goal of the half. Can you believe it?
And this is a bit like deja vu here. 3 points in a row to start the half from the French, and then the Russians get a clean hold to finally stop the bleeding. That seems awfully familiar, but we're seeing here on the replay, that throw pops up a little bit, and actually that plays into Russia's hands quite well because it pops over the French defender who has that underneath positioning, and you get a look at it from this low angle as well. She motions where she wants the cutters to go, goes up a little bit too early, and rising highest above the pile, Polina Kosyreva.
Great anticipation there from the young Russian player, not giving up on it. And I would love to see the Russians break 2 times again now. If you are here with us and would like to see that as well, you can reach us and pop up a message to us on Twitter. I am at _C_OBE.
I'm at Benjamin Rees on Twitter, and you can find me on Instagram as well, at Benji Rees.
And I am at Christina Obermeyer on Instagram. Just tell us what you think about this game as we are going back into action. We can see the French O-line take the field for the first time this half, as Roland is going to be the center of the handler core once more.
She faked a swing there early on. I think that could have actually have gone. Maybe she just wasn't quite comfortable with the way she had the disc in her hands. But if someone's open, especially against his own, I'm just going to take them.
As they have a bit of a miscommunication there. Bono not able to punch in that swing to the very side of the pitch, and Russia with a red zone opportunity for a break. Can you believe it?
And a break here would bring us back level, back on serve at tens.
As a huge shot from Stachova is well defended by the striking number 4 shirt of Olivier, and France will have another shot at a hold.
Those upline passes can be tricky if you don't get them out early enough, because it then means that the defender has the inside track, and part of the way to compensate that is getting a little bit wider out on your pivot and getting a bit more outside in shape to try and curve it around that incoming body.
We can see Russia back with their zone and a great layout to keep possession. Bodies flying all over. Dro with a great catch. As there's going to be another turn for this French side. Second opportunity for Russia to punch it in. Stachova doesn't like what she sees and throws it away immediately. And we can see a deep cut strike, and she's going to put it along with a great throw, but well defended by the Russian Kozyreva with a great disc. But there is a call on the field, injury for number 63, Stachova, who's done so much for this Russian team, shaken up the second time in this game.
Yeah, we saw her coming off earlier after getting winded after a layout. Thankfully, she was able to come back on and continue, especially for Russia, because it's A, so influential, and B, because they're just lacking bodies a little bit now. But
exactly. So Nosikova is going to pick up one more time for this Russian offense. Not a lot of opportunities for her to give it up, but they're going to find their way through it, as she's an easy dump for this Russian team. And a great fake gets the French defender on the ground. Nosikova on the far side and putting it over there with a great swing and a break. Up the line for the Russians. Just some great work. Nosikova again with the disc in her hands. Doesn't find an option she likes, goes for the around flick. Amazing throw. That arsenal is great. That young player is just working it so easily. And she's gonna put it up for the number 8 shirt of Russia, and she can't keep possession of the disc as she's trying to read the disc toe the line and grab it with one hand. Kazakova not able to put the disc in for a goal.
now, obviously, I'm not necessarily a player who's in a position to be giving advice to a thrower the quality of Vasyukova, but one thing I would like to see, if you're going to go for that blading backhand, is just try and adjust the trajectory a little bit slightly, get it slightly further out towards the middle so that when it blades, you just give the receiver a little bit of space to work with. You mentioned as well the advantage of those purposeful fakes, as we saw Fionset take a big old munch out of one of those. And there was a problem as well. They got trapped in a high stall situation because all the resets cleared through, and eventually they did have someone come back, but there was a large proportion of the stall count where there just wasn't anyone there for a quick release valve.
And Russia is going to be back on defense here. French handler core working it up the field. Great inside shot. It's not going to be caught. And Russia, another short field to work with, as there's not a lot of options, but they can sneak it through this time. Great defensive effort, but just amazing put by the young Russian player, Kazakova, putting it in for Vasyukova this time for a Russian score break.
And we're tied back up at 10s. And after the French had a red-hot start to this second half, it felt like, okay, maybe they finally figured things out and maybe they're going to run away with it. But the way this game's gone, every time a team's inched in front, they found another potential banana skin waiting in the road for them, and the other team's been able to catch back up and put that pressure right back on. They are neck and neck now, going very late into this game. Games usually played at a score cap of 15, but if we don't reach that by 100 minutes, you get a time cap. You finish the point, you add +1, and we are very close to that time
1
cap
minute left.
here now.
1
So
minute left here.
almost certainly we'll have 11-10 game to 12. Which way that goes, who's going to be right in pole position, depends on how this point plays out. Russia just putting all the pressure back on France here after a rough start to this second half. They've once more just fought their way back into it. This is a battling performance, and actually 2 years ago out in Veenendaal, EYUC there, the Russian under-20 women's side, took home a silver medal, and they did it on the back of ferocious comebacks in games where they looked like they were dead and buried. They're just a team that never knows when to give up.
I love these teams because you can never know what to expect from a team like that can take on some energy levels and up their game a little bit more with unknown power-ups from somewhere deep inside their arsenal. As we can hear the sign for time cap, France is going to field the pole, and Roland with a great throw there.
The Russians again coming out in a zone defense, just trying to conserve the legs a little bit. If I'm France, I want to move the disc an awful lot here. A, to time them out, but B, I want to move the disc quickly. Really, really have to make those Russian frontline defenders work very hard. Get a lot of lactic acid building up in those legs.
And that's exactly what France is planning on doing. As it looks here, they're just content to swing it over, as we can see a lot of free French players working it around, just going back and forth now, working it through the short fields. And we can see some striking Russian players trying to get a disc in between, and a great shot into space, easily collected by Bono, who's now right in front of the end zone. Doesn't see a look she likes, and Russia has recovered into their zone now, trying to get a break in, but goes for the quick score into the zone for a score. A great work, and that was another sisters connection. The Bono sisters doing so much for this team, finding each other and a lot of their players all the time during this game.
That occasion, Lisson finding Eva for the goal. And France taking an 11-10 lead in this game to 12, so they could win here with a break. And for the first time, I think in the entire half for France, we've seen a clean offensive possession. Although, having said that, we haven't actually seen the Roland necessarily take the field that much, as they just had a phenomenal break train to start this second half, and now putting the pressure on. France very much in the driving seat.
Even though if it was France's D-line getting some opportunities to put in a goal, Russia has always come back to take it. They've not made it easy for France to run over them, and they've looked great on every single one of their possessions, and they're going to come out on offense once more. Let's see if they can put it in and then go out for another defensive point, and that might be a universe point. So either way, this will be a very spicy end of the game that we will see here.
You're seeing it, the confirmation graphic there on the screen, that this is a game to 12. Currently France up 11-10. If Russia could work it down the field here for a goal, we would go into a sudden death universe point thriller that it feels like this game really deserves. Anytime one of the sides has got back in front, the other has found a way to just claw their way back into it.
And we know how Russia works with those comebacks. They're great at doing that, as Vazukova and Sakhova working it in the handless space. France trying to stop their movement with another zone look of their own, as the Russian player is overthrown, and France get an opportunity for a score to win the game. As we see Franquette putting it over to Roland in the middle of the field. Great throw and great catch by Ruel. Oh, and a great dish off to Roland over there. Nice and easy, putting it up the field for the French team. Amazing up the line cut for Roland, who's going to put it deep into the end for the French team to win the game. The 21 shirt of Bono getting that last goal. Amazing put by Roland, doing so much for the French team, and they have broken for the last time. And I love the spirit of Roland going not to celebrate, but to the Russian players to congratulate them for their great match, because it was an intense game, very spirited, and I love her not going to her team to celebrate, but helping the Russians keep putting up a little bit of their spirit again, as she knows how intense that game was for both sides.
A very competitive, but in the end, well-spirited game. If you have to say, what was the difference between the two sides? Maybe a little bit of extra leg room for the French. It really felt like that last point, there was just some unwanted fatigue for the Russians, and also they didn't really find a way to shut down the Bonneau sisters for the French. Lisson had 2 goals and 2 assists, and Eva had 3 goals and 3 assists, and between the two of them there was just nothing that they could do to stop it, and it was fitting in the end that Roland found the latter of the two, Eva Bonneau, for the goal, and France taking home a well-deserved 12-10 victory here.
I have to point out Roland one more time. She has been so good, as we can see this cut. What an amazing positioning, just taking 2 small steps back and then bursting up the line and getting that shot in for the goal. Amazing stuff, as we can see those young French talents staying undefeated and getting on with another win against this very athletic, intense, small Russian roster. We hope you've liked our coverage of this game. There's going to be some more action on the Russian side, as we can now see Russia taking on Israel in the U20 Open division, where Benji will be joined by,
I think Felix is joining me in the booth, hopefully. I'm very excited to work with Felix once more. It's always nice to spend a little bit of mic time with someone who's been so influential in my ultimate career.
Exactly. So stay tuned for this. Come back in and join us for this next game, as we are going to be back soon. I've been Christina Obermeier, joined by Benji Rees. Thanks for tuning in, and see you again soon.